decades now having to do with our subject today, we're going to be the leader by far. We're behind you 1,000%. When it comes to defending America, it is not enough to merely have an American presence in space. We must have American dominance in space. So important. Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement. I am instructing my administration to embrace the budding commercial space industry. We are modernizing out-of-date space regulations. They're way out of date. They haven't been changed in many, many years. And today we're taking one more step to unleash the power of American ingenuity. In a few moments, I will sign a new directive to federal departments and agencies. They will work together with American industry to implement a state-of-the-art framework for space traffic management.
The FAA, the Chilean government agency which investigates UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena, has declassified and released never-before-seen video from 2014 showing a mysterious flying object of which they suggest could have been a UFO. According to a press release from the agency, a Navy helicopter spotted the unidentifiable object while patrolling a coastal region near Santiago, Chile. The unknown object was seen flying at a constant speed, similar to that of the helicopter, and moving forward. The pilot tried several times to communicate with the object, but he received no reply. Air traffic control failed to detect any flying objects on radar. In 2 instances, the object ejected some type of gas or liquid with high thermal tracking. Captured on video, you can see a massive plume of material trailing behind the object. Moments later, a second ejection of the unspecified discharge. The flying object was visible for about 10 minutes before disappearing into the clouds without a trace. What could it be? Was it a UFO? Air Force photo analysts confirmed that the 3-dimensional object was real, with volume and showcased control in its movements. They established that there was no evidence of hoaxing or alteration of the video by any computer application in the editing and processing of the images. Officials also ruled out a bird or flying insect, a drone, parachute, or a hang glider. After an extensive study, the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena agreed it had all the characteristics to be classified as an unidentified aerial phenomenon. For FoxNews.com, I'm Rob Demetrius.
The weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects. ABC's Gio Benitez is at the Hudson River right here in New York with more. Gio, the Navy is now investigating?
They are, Cecilia. Yeah, a lot of these UFOs have been captured on video, some of them over water, and now at least one pilot says he saw them daily. New reporting this morning on unidentified flying objects in our airspace. The New York Times speaking with 5 Navy pilots who've all said they've encountered UFOs during training missions up and down the East Coast. The pilots even noting that the objects were accelerating to hypersonic speed, making sudden stops and instantaneous turns, something beyond the physical limits of a human crew.
Clearly, this is nothing that we're used to seeing up there. We submitted a safety report saying that there was an unidentified object in our working space, and we don't know what to do.
This on the eve of a new History Channel series called Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation.
The object then appears to accelerate rapidly.
The show chronicles a year-long investigation that includes former military intelligence officials speaking out on numerous reported encounters.
We trust the American people to know that there are certain countries that have nuclear warheads, and yet we don't trust the American people to know that there's something in our airspace that we don't know what it is.
Overnight, the Navy telling us that in recent years, there's been a number of reports of unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft in our airspace, and therefore, they've implemented new steps to report further possible incidents. And listen, nobody at the Department of Defense is saying these are extraterrestrial. In fact, they say that there could be earthly explanations for all of this, but a lot of people are left wondering, guys.
I like how you did the air quotes. Earthly explanations. We'll see. All right, more investigating needed.
What's your theory behind what's going on here with these sightings? Documents released via the Freedom of Information Act confirm that these types of incidents have occurred going back to 1948. The documents describe saucer-shaped objects whose capabilities are vastly beyond anything that we have, the Russians have. I think the logical explanation is we're dealing with visitors from somewhere else. Regardless, there are a number of cases now. I've interviewed over 120 former or retired Air Force personnel who've talked about UFO incursions at missile sites, at nuclear weapons storage areas. The incident at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana in 1967 did involve the appearance of a saucer-shaped object above a nuclear missile launch site. Seconds later, all 10 of these missiles controlled by this site malfunctioned. And the two officers involved, including former Captain Bob Salas, who was at the press conference on Monday, by the way, testified that he was sworn to secrecy and told never to discuss this. He kept his silence until 1996. All the gentlemen who appeared with me at the press club believe the American people have a right to know the facts.
But they didn't necessarily believe that theory about why those 10 nuclear sites were deactivated. Why do you believe so strongly that that was truly happening and that it was the result of UFOs as opposed to, let's just say, a malfunction or a military exercise?
Well, what you've just said is not entirely correct. They all agree that there was no technical explanation for what occurred. In fact, the engineering reports from Boeing Corporation stated just that. In fact, all 7 of the persons who appeared with me believe that we are dealing with extraterrestrials. Some of them stated it explicitly at the press conference. What they do not necessarily agree with, three of the 7 agreed with me that these actions represent a signal being sent. I'm of the opinion that whoever are aboard these craft are telling us and the Russians, because these things have taken place in the former Soviet Union, that humans are playing with fire by possessing and threatening to use nuclear weapons. That is speculative on my part. I've always made that clear. But the persons who were at the sites, who witnessed the craft, say that there is no technology on Earth that could account for what they witnessed.
Your press conference yesterday, Robert, certainly sparked an awful lot of conversation around our offices. Yesterday, we were talking about this throughout the day, and it raised a number of questions, such as, who are these aliens? Where did they come from? How did they get here? Why, if they have the technology to travel on an interstellar basis, do they care about what we're doing?
I have a book called UFOs and Nukes. I devote an entire chapter to attempting to answer the questions you just asked. I think most of the answers to those questions are in the realm of speculation, frankly. We don't know. The people at the Pentagon and the CIA and the Kremlin may know the answers to your questions. However, what I simply point out is that you have countless incidents now, and I've investigated over 100 of them and have over 100 witnesses, indicate that craft of vastly superior capabilities have been monitoring the U.S. nuclear arms program since the 1940s, and on occasion, according to these ex-military personnel, have tampered with the weapons. What I also point out is the persons who spoke with me on Monday, by the way, again at the press club, were persons who were vetted by the U.S. government to launch or otherwise operate weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
These are clearly level-headed persons that are now saying that UFOs have shut down our nuclear weapons.
Well, so the question remains then, I mean, this has been the subject of conspiracy theories for decades, as you referred to, the Freedom of Information Act freeing up some of this testimony so that people can read it. What does the government have to gain by blanket denying that we've ever been visited by UFOs?
The RAND Corporation, which is a think tank, did a study for the Air Force in 1968. The Brookings Institution, which is a think tank, did a study for NASA in 1959, I believe, in which they said basically if extraterrestrials are here, governments have nothing to gain and everything to lose by admitting that without knowing the full intentions of whoever might be here. Are they hostile? We don't know. Do they intend some nefarious activities toward humankind? We don't know. So basically, the odds that the U.S. government is going to admit that there are craft flying around American airspace, that run rings around our own aircraft, literally, and we hope they're friendly because we can't control them. And, oh, by the way, they seem to be interested in our nuclear weapons and seem to be shutting them down from time to time. The government has everything to gain by keeping quiet about that.
The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them, as in Sinai, in the holy place. Thou hast ascended on high. Thou hast led captivity captive. Thou hast received gifts for men, yea, for the rebellious also, that the Lord God might dwell among them. Blessed be the Lord, who daily loadeth us with benefits, even the God of our salvation. Selah. He that is our God is the God of salvation, and unto God the Lord belong the issues from death. But God shall wound the head of his enemies, and the hairy scalp of such an one as goeth on still in his trespasses.